when I was going through those chats, I thought, this is perfect. This is the perfect crime.
The individual being interrogated is a 54-year-old ex-cop, Stephen Mark Zellick, who thinks he committed a perfect murder. Also known as the suitcase murderer of Wisconsin, Stephen was guilty of killing 19-year-old Jenny Gomez in 2012. As the investigation went further, more harrowing details resurfaced.
You pull, constrict, release, constrict, and that's very, very erotic for me, control-wise.
At this moment, the detectives discovered something that would indicate that there is more to just one murder.
And now you pretty much have the empty shell of a refrigerator and put in there.
On June 5th, 2014, the police found two decomposed bodies of 19-year-old Jenny Gomez and 37-year-old Laura Simonson stuffed inside two separate suitcases in Walworth County, Wisconsin. The gruesome discovery was made on a rural road near Lake Geneva in June 2014. Jenny was killed by Stephen in August 2012 at a Kenosha motel during a disturbing session of breath play. In 2013, Laura Simonson was also killed by Stephen in Minnesota under identical circumstances. When the investigators identified Stephen as a suspect, they came to know about Jenny's homicide too. What followed was an insane interrogation that would make anyone's skin crawl with disgust.
She flies in. Okay. And let me, just for full clarification, she was 19, and I probably made initial contact on Colony with her. She was probably 16 and a half initially.
Oh, so you had like a 2 to 3 year relationship?
Well, a period of time. And then she was 16 and a half-ish. And then there was a period of time of no contact at all, a couple of years. And I guess as it turns out, she was going to school. I believe she went to like a junior college type thing. And then she kind of recontacted me after quite a period of, a good period of time of absence, maybe a year to 2 years.
Okay.
During that time. So that's where, you have the age difference.
Sure.
So she's 19. And then we reconnect contact-wise at that point.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how familiar you guys are with and all that, but it's a dominant submission type of control hierarchy type of basis, some people see some of the accessories and some of that, toys, accessories, and then they don't understand exactly what it is. It can be certainly essential based, but that's generally not even the focus. Okay. It's more of a type of interaction. Leadership, follower, dominant, submission type of dynamic. Okay. With those type of various different tools and toys, and and where depending on the couple or people involved, it can be or not. Or, it covers a wide variety of activity.
Okay. So when she was coming down here, what was your guys' relationship going to be in that aspect?
I think her intention was full time, and that was probably the discussion we were having, full time.
Where she was submissive to you?
Yeah, and she was going to be here permanent, and it was going to be a kind of a submissive all the time, 24/7 type of.
Okay.
But she would reside with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was definitely what was discussed, and I think that was definitely her understanding. It can be rope around the neck. It can be. Some people are sort of advanced. They do hanging. It's all related to breath constriction.
Okay.
And many times, the motive, I guess, for that is, or the basis for that is, again, control. Many times the person receiving it enjoys that too, almost kind of I'm hardly an expert, but kind of like an autoerotic type of effect. And ultimately, that Sunday morning, she was, I was using rope, and ultimately, there was constriction, and then it would release, and various touching, and ultimately I got very excited. There's no doubt there's an arousal, there's an erotic sensation, and while this was occurring, at some point it became evident that I don't think she was breathing anymore. And I also, and this was explained, and caused by the rope, there's no question about that,
When you're behind her, do you have the rope then around, you're holding the rope, or is it something where you put the rope around her neck prior to? How
prior, at some point I put it on, maybe not initially. And I think I put it on 2, maybe 3 times, but I believe 2 to 3 times around. And you pull, constrict, release, constrict, release, constrict, and that's very, very erotic for me, control-wise. Very erotic, and can be very erotic for the person receiving.
Did she have any other than the neck and the gag, did she have anything else? Any other bounds?
Gag, mouth gag, the rope, which was attached last, and wrists, handcuffs on the wrists. Legs were free.
Okay. Rope attached last to the neck.
It was handcuffs and gag. Okay. And then the third element was the rope.
Steven shows no remorse in justifying what he did to Jenny. The way he lured his victims through S&M websites under a dominant alias and killed them during encounters reeks of his psychopathy. However, these are not even the worst of his deeds. What the detectives will disclose next would be nothing short of bone-chilling and terrifying.
In this case, came into play because it was going to be breath play around the neck. And breath play can be, I think I mentioned earlier, it can be the choking and nose, nostrils, and the rope hanging. It can come in different forms, but this case was rope around the neck.
And it's a control thing you referenced for you, correct? Does she have any say in the whole thing, or is that part of her submission to you? Or
right.
And I've heard things about safe words, stuff like that. How did that work in this arrangement?
In this case, there was no safe words. Okay. There are safe words in the depending on the relationship. I've always thought and felt and not use safe words much, if at all. On the other hand, I always also thought that I was, and let me preface before I answer that. I started enjoying probably age 19 or 20. So it's really it's kind of been a lifestyle, a lifetime thing. But to answer that specifically, I never have used the safe words because I never had a problem not keeping control, monitoring the safety and well-being of anybody that I've ever been with. And although this breath play is one of, if not the, certainly one of the higher level activities, just by the nature of, the breath and obviously the repercussions of something going wrong, or the chances of something going wrong. But so no breath play was used, or no safe words were used.
You felt that she had passed away.
Yes.
What do you do thereafter?
Oh, that's the moment of truth. And believe me, these questions were asked already. That's the moment I have to decide. I can either call 911 or call management, call the hotel, call somebody, call police, call rescue, call, or they can do what I did. And took her, and instead of reporting it, put her in one of the suitcases, closed the suitcase, packed up everything, went downstairs. I don't recall if I went and got a luggage cart and brought it up to the room. Well, I must have. Or if we had it in the room, or maybe just found it in the hallway. But I brought a luggage cart into the hallway, stacked all the luggage, including the pink luggage, which had her in it now, and rolled it out to my car.
She had 2 suitcases. What did all of the stuff in the pink one fit into the other? Did you take everything of hers with you? Or did you leave stuff in the hotel?
No, I took everything with me and put it either in her second bag or piece of luggage, I think, which was smaller, and or in my room in my pieces of luggage. So, but everything left the room.
And we mentioned that she defecated, so that obviously would have left some sort of mess.
A little bit of, not terribly large.
Okay.
And I went to the bathroom and I took either a small bath towel or washcloth type thing, hot water, and that cleaned it up. I think I rinsed out the towel, and I think I left it there for housekeeping. With the other towels.
So no sheets or anything.
No. It was more. It came out. I think a little bit ran down her leg, a little bit, and a small amount on the carpet.
Unload the luggage in your vehicle.
Take or put it in my vehicle or whatever, and drive home. And we believe this is August-ish.
That's what we were told as well, like you had said,
And that's warm. So she was taken, the suitcase was taken. Of course, now what do I do? I'm still in I have no idea what I want to do or what I'm going to do. I have no idea. She comes in, the pink suitcase comes into the house. I take her out. Well, I empty the refrigerator because my only option is how long do I have with the heat of August before, you're forced to make a decision. She was put in the refrigerator. And really, my thinking, I think, was to buy time and figure out what I'm going to do.
Put in the refrigerator inside the suitcase still? Or
No. Outside the suitcase, naked, outside the suitcase. And of course, you can imagine, you get the shelving and all that. I have to take the shelving out. And now you pretty much have the empty shelf of a refrigerator. And put in there, door closed, and seemingly problem solved. Well, I'm making almost light of it because problem's not solved, but it gives me time because I get the temperature issue.
Sure.
So that is where she stayed for quite a while. And then in further discussion, the refrigerator's empty, the shelves and all that's out, and I can't use the refrigerator.
Stephen treated Jenny's dead body as a mere inconvenience that he needed to discard as quickly as possible. This is another glaring example of his monstrous nature, as Stephen gets on a roll while recounting his disgusting erotic experiences. The detectives would play along to get more confessions.
November of 13 approximately is when I take her out and put her in the suitcase, back out with the second suitcase.
She went back into the original suitcase, that pink one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then in the trunk of the car, now because that's now being winter, November of 13 into this past winter.
What do you mean by the other suitcase?
The other suitcase is a second incident that occurred November-ish, early November. of 13 in Minnesota.
Without getting into details about that incident, what occurred in that incident?
Very similar basis, very similar circumstances, and it happened. That occurred in Rochester, Minnesota, where I talked to the detective today, and early November, I think the first week, and that was the first incident after Jenny. I mean, that was the first in-person contact simulated with Jenny, and then second girl, Laura.
Okay. So you didn't have any more meetings with other females?
No.
Basically in that year?
Correct.
Or what would it be, 8 months, 9 months?
Correct.
10 months?
Correct.
Okay. So when you say very similar, you're saying that you use the breathe control?
Breathe control, probably a little bit more elaborate in the second one. They had rope, and I think I did utilize some choking and some nostril, all the elements. I think it was a little bit longer session,
Okay.
and maybe a little bit more extensive, or a little bit more, did a little bit more things, or utilized a little bit more techniques or tools, so to speak. And it was probably a little longer, and it was definitely intense and very similar in circumstances. Although basically very similar.
You had said that you have to monitor breathing of the submissive person.
Right.
And when you go, how do you monitor? I mean, what do you practice things with different people, and then you just kind of know, or you just kind of?
It's a combination. It's really the most important part has to do with me, the dominant person, can't get so caught up in the scene or the enjoyment or whatever. You have to basically keep your own control. Not the kind of control we're talking about for the person, but you have to kind of separate yourself and can always monitor. You can't fully enjoy. You have to. You can't allow yourself to fully enjoy or to fully lose. Kind of at the moment, the monitoring aspect. And that's really what I was referring to.
Okay.
And that's what didn't occur.
So by you trying the new technique with the nose and going further into the breathing control aspect, you don't really know until you use those techniques on that person. And then you just monitor that person throughout
overall
the session.
That is correct. And what creates an additional problem is if, while I'm doing that, because if I'm just doing that, it would be okay, because I would still be monitoring. It's getting caught up in the enjoyment in the moment to where you're not any longer doing that monitoring. You're just caught up in the actions and the fun and the enjoyment and the erotic aspect of it, and you're letting it get away from you. For myself, the best way to describe it is, in this instance, there was no involved. There was no, but there was still incredible arousal and enjoyment and eroticism and lack of control and all of that things. But that definitely did not occur.
Okay. So no, I understand. Okay. I appreciate you explaining that to me. Yeah. Is that similar to what happened then with Jenny, or was Jenny?
Same thing. There was no intercourse, no part, no anything. I was clothed, she was naked. Very similar in that respect. Dynamics were very similar.
The way Stephen concealed the bodies in suitcases and tried to cover up the crimes makes it evident that he used his experience as an ex-cop to hide the evidence. His actions and crimes exhibit traits commonly associated with psychopathy, such as manipulation, extreme disregard for human life, and lack of empathy. But this time, the investigation takes a different turn. Stephen, contrary to his previously calm self, suddenly becomes a bit defensive. He now sings a different tune by calling his murders a mere accident. But this excuse is about to be played down by the investigators with more incriminating information.
What did you do with Jenny's personal belongings?
And that was, I think Gil asked me, or Jeff, I'm not sure, asked me a similar question. And that was just miscellaneously discarded, personal clothing, toiletries or whatever was in there.
What about the more expensive stuff like the tablet, the electronic tablet or cell phone?
Same thing, just randomly discarded.
So you just threw away the electronic tablet?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember where you threw that away?
No, not really, because that was with both. That was just randomly tossed garbages, dumpsters. Just no real plan or purpose with that.
Now, I know that Laura had a cell phone that she had with her.
Okay.
Do you remember what you did with Laura's cell phone?
Same thing. If she had, I don't even specifically recall. I mean, I don't specifically, but anything was probably tossed just randomly. Okay.
Because the reason why I know about Laura is because in your chats you got pretty specific with Laura on it, and you had said, when you walk through all those things that you talked about, close your accounts and do all that. One thing you had said is keep this phone, have it with you. I won't be able to communicate with you when I leave, but bring this phone with you, and instantly have the instant messenger piece of it.
And I don't specifically remember the phone. I don't specifically, I can't picture it, but any of her, with both, randomly, basically just randomly thrown out. Okay. When you're getting Laura ready to kind of for this face-to-face encounter, and you're going through the different, what do you call them, demands or criteria or protocol? What did you use? Protocols. Protocols. Okay, that was okay. So when you're going through that with Laura, is there a part? I'm thinking about how important the control is, and not everybody can be at this level of doing this high-end, level of a bondage exercise, with the breath play. And so is there, when you're kind of starting to get Laura for these protocols and going through the protocols, is there a part of Laura's experience that is mirroring Jenny's? Because of how enjoyable and exciting Jenny's was, of kind of trying to recreate. Kind of like if there's a fantasy, you'd be kind of putting that same fantasy together. Sure. But for you, like I said, it's not fantasy because it's in reality. I understand now. Well, there are certainly similarities, and I must have been thinking along those lines. That there are similarities, between these two instances. Because they almost, like, when you put them up to each other, they're just almost identical. And that's what I was thinking. So you say... And I don't know if that was absolutely conscious, but when I look at the two, obviously they're very similar. So either I consciously thought that, or planned that, or preferred that, or it maybe just naturally occurred because that was maybe a preference. So either way, though, kind of you leading yourself down that path because of the preference, whether because you already knew it was enjoyable, so the road map's already there, and you're kind of going through it. In my mind, sure. Okay.
You remember your first cigarette, right? Mm-hmm. That was a damn good cigarette. And as you go on over the years, you enjoy it a little bit, but it's not as good as that first cigarette. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to recreate that experience, that feeling from the first one to the second one? The part when I described very accurate, I can't say consciously that I consciously said to myself, I'm going to recreate. That I like this so much that I'm going to recreate it exactly.
although it appears very accurate.
Well, and that's why I wonder if it's can't or you won't. You know what I mean? Because it's very kind of, when we look at it, it's a total mirror. It's a total mirror, and that breath control exercise, the breath play with Jenny. If I understand from everything that we talked about last night and all the information I know about foundation and you know, that lifestyle, that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big event. It's not one that you would forget. It's kind of like, you know, winning the Super Bowl. It's up there on the top, and all the people that win the Super Bowl, they're going to remember that Super Bowl, and they're going to want to get to the Super Bowl again, right? I mean, it's magnified. It's significant. It puts you at a different level in the community that you're willing to do that high-end activity that requires a type of associated risk with it. That's kind of a status in a way.
Well,
I mean, that's kind of,
I don't disagree. I just, the only thing yesterday and today, the only part that I pause with is that I don't feel or recall that I'm consciously saying, Steve, telling myself or thinking of it so definitively that way. You know, so clearly, that's, you know, talking to myself or imaging it that way.
This time, the investigators are using reverse psychology to make Stephen confess his guilt. In the second interrogation, the detective strokes Stephen's ego by calling him an expert in. And this is about to become an excellent technique to make Stephen give more insights into his sickening deeds.
Do you remember yesterday how we were talking between the first one and the second one, and when you got to the second one, you continued to say that it was very much so like the first one. Many times you kept referring to the first one. It was the second was like the first one. You know, do you remember saying that to me yesterday?
Yes.
Very similar to like the first one. You know, it's almost like the same MO. If I could, you being a law officer.
Yes, and when you look at it, you know, yes, the similarities of the two instances are similar. The only slight part I am pointing out is that I don't recall or feel I was consciously saying, you know, creating it or recreating it.
But thinking back right now, what would you think?
Well, there must have been incredible preference and subconscious, you know, appreciation for the first one, or like I just don't recall or feel that I was the first one, the second one. I'm going to recreate it so specifically that I just don't feel I was doing.
I have to be honest with you, and kind of before we talked, and you know, before I knew anything kind of about you and all this type of stuff. When I was reading the chats between Laura and you, and I'll call it the disappear game, okay? There's kind of this flavor where you're guiding her how to disappear, right? And it's kind of disappear game, and you're being very thorough on how you're going about, you know, close your accounts, do all this type of stuff. And I get kind of confused in the process because before I met you, you know, and I do a lot of different work with the FBI, and I've worked with other, you know, offenders that have did different odd things or been very violent, and serial killers that I've talked with, and all that type of stuff. And when I was going through those chats, I thought, this is perfect. This is the perfect crime because it's so organized. And from a law enforcement perspective, if I go to do a missing person investigation, first I'm going to check their bank accounts. Well, when I go to their bank accounts or the bank, I see the actual person closing the accounts. Maybe I see video and it's the person closing the account. I go online to see, well, maybe all their accounts are closed. I try to find their belongings. There's no belongings anywhere. They didn't give their belongings away to anybody in their family to show that maybe they were departing. You know,
there's no bank activity.
There's no bank account activity. So sharing from my experience as a law enforcement officer and kind of working in serial crimes, I'm thinking, this is pretty amazing. This is outstanding, and how it's the perfect crime, the disappear game, where it's so organized and thought through that from a law enforcement perspective, it's hard to, one, be able to prove something happened to that person, and two, a lot of times, like in Laura's case and in Jenny's case, they have some type of mental health issues that are there and struggles that they've already had, that sometimes their families don't even realize they're gone because they've had such a transient kind of lifestyle before. So like, when I was looking at all that, I was really, I have to be honest, I was pretty amazed by it. I thought, this is the perfect game. This is disappear game. And there's no way to, as a law enforcement officer, as I'm weaving and trying to figure every which way that I could find a suspect or find kind of coordinated, all my roads have been closed off. And so for me, you talked about yesterday, the struggles that you were kind of having with, I have this inside, kind of law enforcement sensitive, like being involved and around this camaraderie, and then I'm kind of doing things that are kind of outside of that circle, and there's kind of a dichotomy there, and it's hard to kind of make sense of that because they don't kind of go together sometimes. And for me, I'm having that same kind of dichotomy because on one side of it, it's so organized and so thought through, and then on the other side of it, the suitcases, like you said last night, not concealed, just kind of put there. Jenny's in your fridge from August of 2012 till November of 2013. So, I bet you if we looked at your financial records, there's probably a lot of fast food during that time period that peaked, right? Because you couldn't use your fridge, right?
I think I mentioned that very specifically, yes.
Yeah, and so I really... help me understand that dichotomy, because I'm really struggling with that, because there's two different pieces there. There's on one side the very organized, perfect kind of crime, and then the not so organized kind of discarded. I mean, if I didn't know better, I would say there's two different people involved here.
Now, Stephen understands that showing his psychopathic side won't help him get on the detective's radar. So at this point, he comes up with an excuse in the hopes of reducing his guilt. This is the point when the investigators are about to point out the crack in Stephen's downright pathetic excuses.
Somebody else dumped the bodies, and they didn't care about the bodies. They weren't connected to the bodies, so they just put them anywhere. Right. And the other person that was more kind of the alpha male in it, or the more, if you had two people, one would be a follower, one would be alpha male, and the alpha male is the one who kind of planned this all out. So, what are your thoughts?
I think I see the same thing, I suppose. You articulated very well. I don't even know how to answer that. I see this, same thing. There are parts to the whole law enforcement thing and that, and generally I've been organized and am organized. Activities and enjoyment, or call it a hobby, or participation, has been to varying degrees a long time. Like I mentioned yesterday, starting in probably late teens, 19-ish, 20-ish, maybe. Right through still many years of law enforcement and after law enforcement.
Well, and I think, I'm kind of a visual person, so I was just going to kind of write down kind of some of the things in columns that fit for one side of it versus the other, So we talked about the disappear game being organized.
And let me just mention on that, because you bring up so many things, that whole organized thing, I certainly can't take credit for that myself. That's a whole very common thing in the whole, on the higher end of the master-slave type thing.
The one thing, too, that I wanted to talk about on my organized side here that was kind of ironic is one of the last chats you have with Laura, you say, remember, no communication, I'm going to leave my phone from Milwaukee, and I come down, and I forget the specifics, basically you say something like, you understand no communications, and she said, understood no communications. Is that so they can't trace your phone when you dump my body?
No, that is just all that kind of talk and planning is part and parcel of the culture, the control, the
But I get what
specific to the long-term plan.
I get what you're saying as far as you saying I'm not bringing my phone and there's not going to be communication. But Laura's saying, is that so you can dump my body? Are you saying, Laura, saying that is part of the... Because I saw that as an outlier, that was Laura kind of tongue-in-cheek saying, hey, you know, kind of joking around, and then how ironic of what happened.
Correct. And that type of tongue-in-cheek comment is made all the time. That's not uncommon for a submissive slave. In that type of conversation, that type of comment is...
So you're telling me that there's other people in the culture that play the disappear game. And that disappear game is my term, but...
Sure, it's your term, and it's accurate, I guess, but this type of communication that you have, that you have my communication with Jenny and Laura and others, is not certainly unique to me, or it's not created by me, or I didn't think it up.
Okay.
That type of interaction goes on, you know, far more frequently than you would imagine. And there's people not like myself, but dominants, or who would have this kind of conversation far more graphic than anything I had. And you would find similar type of conversation regarding long term. Okay. If that's the goal between the two parties.
I understand what you're saying, Steve. I'm trying to make it make sense in my head. You know, in one sense, it seems like the perfect crime. You know, and one person could say the reason why, you know, like you said to me, do you think I wanted to get caught? And there's two reasons that a person would want to do that. One is they are out of control. They can't stop. They're realize, you know, I'm not willing to go to the PD, but I'm willing to do something like this, and then this will maybe be over. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm tired. I'm sick of kind of worrying about this. The other reason is taking control of it again. And taking control of this situation that's out of control by making it look like it's disorganized and not calculated, then creates this ultimate kind of red herring of, I'm not someone who planned this out thoroughly. It's not the perfect crime, but it still is because that person is playing. They're pretending and kind of taking on this thing, this kind of, you know.
Up until this point, Stephen doesn't seem to grasp the gravity of his gruesome deeds. But this delusion is about to be shattered as the detectives drop another bombshell.
But think about it, though. Yeah.
It's pretty calculating. It's pretty calculating, but I'm trying to make it look at things. And when you said that last night, and being honest again, you didn't say, Carrie, I put him there because I wanted to get caught because I couldn't stop. Or I put him there because I didn't know, I wanted it to be over, and that would make it over. You know, by police finding it, I just wanted it to be done. You didn't say that. You didn't offer anything else up. You just said, Carrie, do you think
I told you, I believe I told you, I didn't have an answer, a solution. I was somewhat forced. I thought I view it as very, what's the word I want to use? Very, I acted, but I think I was forced to, because weather and time, I was being forced. I was forced on a move that all the way back to November, the refrigerator, then you have outside, the car's outside.
It's warm.
It's wintertime, sub-zero, and the weather, all that time, I still didn't have a solution or a plan. I didn't, and I was forced, I think, by the weather.
This is that other flight information that we were talking about last night.
Yeah.
So what do you remember when you see that?
That was, and that's my writing. And it looks like somebody I was talking to, would have been somebody I was talking to, related, that they, may have planned a trip here.
This is November 30th.
Okay.
Which is,
We're talking previous, just
we're
recent.
talking November 20, I'm guessing 2013.
Right, last year.
Yep, so Laura is in your trunk. Jenny's in your trunk at this time.
Right.
Anything else because for somebody who's had such significant life events, Steve, what you just said, I could come up with that. I could say, based on looking at this, looks like your handwriting, looks like somebody you're probably talking to who was planning a trip here.
Right.
I'm having a little bit of trouble not having you having more recollection about some of this stuff,
Well,
knowing.
That's a specific flight. That's an arrival time.
sure.
I mean, that's a specific. Somebody's flying in.
They gave me that. They gave me that.
Yeah.
Who gave you that?
The person I was talking to.
Who flew in? Who was?
Nobody flew in. That's the thing. Nobody flew in. You'll find no match. What you will find online, maybe call it the internet. For every time you have a legitimate contact with somebody, some type of correspondence, you also have a whole lot of foolishness and just,
I get that.
that doesn't.
I understand
that's
that
not
fantasy
real.
that doesn't go anywhere, but this looks like it was going somewhere. This looks real to me.
Right.
Because if I go right now to Delta
Yes.
and I say, Delta, give me a list of everybody who flew in on November 30th,
Right.
Friday, this flight, this time, give me a list, and I go through, I will find somebody's name like that on there. And I will be able to find that person and go interview them.
Sure, I don't.
And when I do that, because even though she's in the UK,
Right.
we have FBI in the UK.
Sure.
I can send them there. So when they go and interview her, she's going to say, I don't know, Stephen. I don't know.
Well, no, she'll say, we had interaction or some kind of computer thing, interaction, but she's going to say, she obviously didn't get on that flight, didn't,
How do you know she didn't get on the flight? You don't really even remember it, you're saying.
No. Well, I remember it, but then I don't remember her. I don't specifically remember her. I couldn't tell you what she looks like. I couldn't tell you specific. I'm sure we had some generally consistent, common communication, general along the lines that, because they're all very similar.
So Jenny flew in,
Right. Right.
So we will. This is one of the things that we will do. We will follow up on this to make sure that is still with us.
Of course, and if we'll take it to the extreme. If she came in and if something happened, of course you're going to find out that girl was on the plane and blah, blah, blah.
I will be able to find that. I'll be able to find that she was on the plane, and who she was, and if she's still alive.
And I'm almost amazed, you'll have it in short order.
Yeah.
So I have there's no problem. There's no problem. There's no fear in my heart. There's nothing for me to add.
At this point, Stephen becomes more adamant to maintain the credibility of his excuse. But this would all go in vain, as what the detectives bring up next would finally burn Stephen's house of lies.
I understand what you're saying. The only thing that gets me around questioning you is because when you say, why would I say I know nothing about it when I know eventually you're going to find out?
Yes.
Is the same temporary kind of band-aid that you did with Jenny and with Laura by putting Jenny in the fridge and putting that, I don't deal with that yet. Sometime that's going to come out. Jenny or Laura in that trunk. Sometime that's going to come out.
The difference being the current circumstances change that or void that.
How does that change that for you?
Well,
The current circumstance that you're in.
the current circumstances at this point, custody, if you were to present that, I would say, yeah, add that to the list and we can talk about that. But there's nothing there to talk about.
Okay.
So.
And if you did, you remember it would be a significant event, like you remember Jenny and Laura.
If it were to that, I would certainly be able to tell you, yeah, I had any in-person contact with that person.
Knowing that process and knowing what happened to Jenny, you know that there's potential that Laura could die.
Yes, although I can't recall specifically thinking about it so consciously, but I'm sure to some degree or some way is going to maybe go through acknowledgement through your mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't recall myself thinking of it so specifically or directly like that.
What about kind of, because remember we talked about the compartments,
Yes.
kind of putting things in. This is a compartment, a big compartment. You know, for what happened to Jenny is kind of put into a compartment for you. That's how I see it. You know, and it's kind of there and it's preserved, and you're able to kind of do other things over here, and you go there when you need stuff from it, and as far as visually and a fantasy based, right? It's there, but sometimes you can just not think about it. Is there a part of this where, you know, and I'm only going off of my own thoughts of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going through and you're thinking, I'm going to do breath play again, we're going to do stuff that's going to be exciting, and last time it was very exciting. Something bad happened, but it was very exciting. There's a chance something bad could happen again. Do you at all start to think if that happens?
Sure.
Any more planning into that scenario, given now that you've been through Jenny, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure there was to some degree, because I know that you're correct. You're correct when you say that it's interesting, erotic, intense, exciting, and you have Jenny, but I still chose to go there, and that's on one hand that defies one could say it defies logic, and you know. You have one fantasy thing that you could pick another activity, or lesser, safer, or something other activity, and did go there again in multiple ways, probably multiple ways that
and longer duration, probably, right? Yeah.
like 3 different versions, and so definitely a longer period of time.
Do you see how cunning you are?
So
How you moved that car off that lot, how you went and you tried to get rid of that smell. So you are trying to, again, be organized and be in control. It's not like all of a sudden I knocked at the police station and I say I did it. So at some point you didn't want to get away with it.
guilt, I would interpret it opposite of that. I would interpret it as the weather is forcing me to act now. I would say that not so cunning. In fact, almost the opposite. And I moved it off the line only because, well,
Jesus Christ.
Jesus
How are you
Christ.
going to keep that in there?
Somebody noticed for the first time.
But how come when we were talking about all this stuff last night, that's not something that gets talked about? Like, yeah, I had to dump those bodies. I had to get rid of them because I was at work 2 weeks ago or whatever the time is, and someone said this stinks, and here I have been trying to mask the smell with spray.
We talked about so much last night, but that was just part of it. I thought we covered it maybe with different words. That it was the temperature. We talked about the temperature.
Yeah, we did talk about the temperature, and then you could smell it. But when somebody else smelling it takes it to another level, right?
Right, 'cause it was-
of, I need to act fast.
It was getting warmer.
It was getting warmer. It had been hot that all week. It had been 80 in the 80s that week.
While Zellick's actions strongly suggest psychopathic traits such as manipulation, control, and lack of remorse, there's no public record of a formal diagnosis. But even though Stephen keeps calling his murders accidental, the detectives have enough evidence to convict him for these chilling double homicides. Did Stephen receive the right punishment for his actions? Stephen Zellick was indicted with second-degree murder for killing his second victim, Laura Simonson, in August 2014, for which he was sentenced to 25 years in prison after he pleaded guilty of this homicide. In addition to this, Stephen received a 35-year sentence as he was charged with first-degree murder on March 30th, 2016, for the reckless homicide of Jenny Gomez and for the use of a deadly weapon. Stephen was also given an additional 3-year sentence for hiding Jenny's corpse. However, Stephen had already served 644 days in prison when Jenny's case was pending, It's not yet known if Stephen would appeal his sentences as per his attorney. With a sentence of this magnitude, it's assured that a twisted and cold-hearted killer like Stephen will never be free again.